So our topic today is 18 ways to find money or to open or grow your business. So we're going to be talking a little bit about not just growing your business, but we're going to talk about the different stages of a business. So you can have a startup phase where you're starting a business. You can have a growth phase where you're growing it. You can have a phase where some businesses hit a point where they just want to sustain their business. They don't want to grow it that much anymore. So you can have a sustainability phase. You might have a phase where somebody wants to scale their business up. They want to make a big jump in growth. So they're either adding new product or service lines, they are adding a large number of employees, they're expanding their space pretty dramatically, and that's sort of a scale-up phase. You'll find sometimes with the economy or a business model, some businesses hit a phase where they plateau or they really start declining and they're going down. So you can have a turnaround phase where the business is trying to turn business around, as an example. You can also have a phase where you're looking to basically sell the business and you want to position your business to get the most money for that business. So you might need capital for any of these phases, which again could be the startup phase, it could be a growth phase, it could be a sustainability phase, it could be a scale-up phase, as an example, or it could be where you're looking to position to sell a business for the maximum return on investment for it then. So we're going to talk about the 18 different ways where you can access capital, depending on what phase that you're looking at or what phase you're moving into. So when we're doing this, we want to look at best practices. And what's the best way to do this? What's the best way to work with different capitals, as an example? So let's get started with the first one. So the first one is angel investors. So who is an angel investor? An angel investor is an individual that has a net worth or disposable income that allows them to invest in businesses. A good number of these angel investors also already have successful businesses. So when you're looking to an angel investor, you might not be only looking for capital, you might be looking for some advice on how to handle one of these phases that you're looking to do for your business. So with angel investors, you have two different ways that you can discuss with them as far as money. One could be a loan, and one could be where they're going to own a part of your business. So angel investors are looking to have a higher rate of return than they have on their other investments. So if you're working with an angel investor and you're looking at sort of a loan arrangement, you're going to be paying a higher interest rate than you would a traditional bank loan or a micro loan or money from a finance company. So where it makes the most sense for an angel investor is you want to be in a position where you're going to have rapid growth, where you can pay that loan back more quickly and more easily. That way you're not paying as much interest, as an example. The other phase is where they're wanting to own a portion of your business. So if you're doing this, realize that you want to really have that legally set up right, and just realize now that you're taking on a partner that's going to have some say on how you run your business in regards to that, and that has its pluses and minuses. So if you're looking for an angel investor for your area, if it's a major metropolitan network, just go to Google and type in angel investors for your city. If you live in more of a rural area, just go to type in Google angel investor near me, and that'll pull up the different either networks or organizations in your area or your city in regards to that. And that's how you find an angel investor. The second one we're going to look at is bank loans. And this is a traditional bank loan where people go for banking services like checking services, as an example. So with a bank, they are a for-profit organization. So what they're looking for is a return on their investment. They're also looking to minimize their risk. So as a general rule, a bank would rather loan money to an existing business that's been in business 2 to 3 years, because that way they have the ability to look at tax returns and see what the business is actually doing. Versus a startup business, you're projecting something, but you don't know exactly how that might turn out. So again, if you're looking for a bank loan, you're better off probably if you're an existing business to go in that direction, as an example. But bank loans do typically have a little bit lower interest rate because, again, they're looking for a lower risk factor in regards to that. So if you're a startup phase, as an example, you're going to be looking at some other sources of capital, which will be a micro loan, which we'll cover a little bit later in this program here. They also, for bank loans, since they're looking to minimize risk, they're going to usually have a minimum credit score that they're sort of looking for. And that could be around the 690 range or so, depending on the bank. So if your credit score is below 690 or the range that your bank is looking for, then what you want to do, as an example, is you're going to be looking for another source. And again, one of those sources could be a micro loan organization we'll sort of talk about. So if you're looking to take out a bank loan, what I would recommend before you go in and turn an application is just reach out to the bank loan officer, explain your type of business, explain what you're needing the money for, as an example, whether it's collateralized, where there's an asset involved, or it's basically just working capital, and then see if they are interested in that type of a loan before you go and submit an application to them with a business plan, as an example. The other thing with a bank loan that you want to sort of look at in regards to that is basically they are going to require you to pay a certain amount back each month, and that's sort of built into the contract you have with the bank loan organization in regards to that. The other thing you can reach out to a bank loan organization is they might be partnering with government loans like SBA. So one of the things you can reach out to is see if the bank loan is 100% a bank loan from them, or they're partnering with the SBA, which is a government loan, and we'll be covering that here shortly. So bartering, what is bartering? Bartering is when you need something and somebody's going to provide that to you, and you're going to do an exchange of services for value. So let's say you have a project coming up and you're a restaurant and you need a new logo and you need some graphic design done for either marketing materials or signage. And let's say the fair market value of that is $1,000. So basically what you're looking for is a graphic design company that's going to do that $1,000 worth of graphic design services for you. And what you're going to barter or exchange in place for that is $1,000 of dining at your restaurant. So that's basically bartering. It's you're needing something, you're looking for a product or service from somebody else, and you're exchanging fair value. When you're doing bartering, make sure you are looking at that fair market value. And that's something the IRS is going to be looking at. So when you do bartering, make sure you're filling out the bartering form for the IRS. You're putting in that fair market value, and that way you are going to be okay with the IRS and having that bartering work done. The next one is cash flow. So cash flow is going to be for a business that is basically an existing business. It could be a growth business. It could be a scale-up business. It could be a sustainable business, as an example, or it could be a business that's operating and looking to sell that business in the future. With the startup phase, your cash flow might be a little bit less predictable in the beginning. So cash flow is the amount of money that's flowing through a business. And what you're doing is you're taking a portion of that cash flow and you're reinvesting it back into your business as far as capital then. So again, that's cash flow. It can be for any business. For startup, it's a little bit less predictable because you're not quite sure what your cash flow is going to be. The fifth one we're sort of looking at here is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding are online platforms where you have a project and you put it out to the world and you're saying, I need funding for this, as an example. And it could be anything that your business is needing to do or you're wanting to do. There's two types of sort of crowdfunding platforms out there. One is where you're doing an exchange for money for something, and the other one is a little bit more of an investment vehicle type of thing. So let's talk about the exchange and how that works. So let's say you're needing, as an example, $5,000 for a project, and you're coming up with things to exchange for that. And that could be anything from like t-shirts, it could be product, as an example. So what happens is you're having a contract with somebody, and let's say you're going to basically provide a t-shirt to somebody if they're providing you $50 in a donation to your organization. So what you want to make sure there is you have a contract. You want to make sure you honor that contract. And the way you honor that contract is if you're saying that somebody gives you a $50 donation, you're going to give them a t-shirt. You need to make sure you're giving that t-shirt back to them in the amount of days you've specified. Let's say 30 days. So if you have a failure to do that, they can come back against your organization and you might be in some legal jeopardy because you have a contract with somebody, you didn't fulfill that contract. So if you're doing crowdfunding and you do an exchange for donations for some type of product or service within a specified time, make sure you're doing that within that specified time, and that way you honor that contract. Depending on the state you're in, there's some crowdfunding vehicles out there now where you can invest in small businesses, and that investment is tied into the cash flow that the businesses experience. It's not tied into a stock return or something like that. So if you're interested in crowdfunding, type in crowdfunding on Google for either your city or your area or near me, and that way you can get tied into crowdfunding and how it's working specifically for your market. So our sixth strategy for capital is customer capital. That's where your customer is paying for something. They may be paying for something totally upfront, or they may be paying a portion of it. So if you take businesses like construction, landscaping, they usually have a deposit they pay up front, and then as the project proceeds, they pay that down. So for your business model, if you have the ability to collect money from customers, either in advance, as an example, or over a period of time, that could be a source that you could look at for customer capital. Our next one we're looking at is factoring. Factoring is when a business has accounts receivable. People owe you money, and you are basically carrying that money in your books. And they're usually paying you over time, and that might be so much per month. So where a lot of businesses used to have that was like dentists and doctors and lawyers and people like that. So they were carrying money on the books, accounts receivable, and they needed access to capital sooner. So there'd be a company called a factor that would come in. They would basically evaluate the creditworthiness of the accounts receivable money, and then they would pay you a percentage of what you were basically had on your books, as an example. So you got that money up front that you could use for that product, and they would continue to sort of collect that money from those people that owe you that money. And that percent could be anywhere from 1 to 6% or higher, depending on, as an example, the creditworthiness of the business that you're in. So that's basically factoring. Factoring is where you have accounts receivable. You are now transferring that accounts receivable money for collection over to somebody else. You're paying them a percentage for that to have that done. And that allows you to access capital sooner if you're needing for a project coming up. The next strategy is family and friends, and that's where you're reaching out to family and friends to sort of help you with your business, as an example. So my recommendation, if you're going to reach out to family and friends, make sure you have a business plan and you sit down with them and you basically show them the risk and the reward for that business plan. Because if they're loaning you money, as an example, that money is at risk. So when you're dealing with family and friends, you want to keep your family and friends friends. You don't want to have issues come up. Money can do that, or issues over money can do that. So my recommendation is show them a business plan, go over with them the business plan, show them the risks, and then I would recommend that you have a legal document that explains what that transaction is. Is it a gift? Is it a no-interest loan? Is it an interest loan? Is it part ownership in the business, as an example? If it's a no-interest loan or an interest loan, what's the payback period, as an example? So once you have that down on paper, I would suggest having that notarized. If it's a larger amount, I would basically recommend the lawyer draw that up. You want to keep your family and friends in good terms, so make sure you share with them a business plan. They fully understand the business model and what the risks are, and make sure you clarify, is it a gift? Is it a no-interest loan? Is it an interest loan? If it's a loan, what's the payback period of time? And that way, if something comes up where somebody wants their money sooner, you can go back to the document and say, here's what we agreed upon. It gives you a point where you can have a discussion to look at something black and white versus your memory and their memory. And if you find that you can't resolve that, it gives you a better situation to sit down with a mediator to sort of mediate that situation to sort of resolve it. The next one is a finance company. A finance company can basically be a for-profit organization. It could be a nonprofit organization, as an example. How it's different than a bank is banks are regulated by the federal government. Finance companies have a little bit more flexibility on how they operate. So they might be able to loan you money where a bank might not be able to loan you money because you might have something that is not in line with what their terms are, which could be, as an example, a debt to equity, as an example, in the business. So make sure, as an example, if you're looking for a finance company, there's for-profit ones out there, there's nonprofit ones out there. There's ones that are tied in with the federal government called SBIRs. Do your research, make sure you're going to be approaching a finance company that is in your best interest, as an example. And again, if you're looking for a finance company, all you have to do is type in finance company for your metropolitan area. Again, if you're in a rural area, type in finance companies near me. Look at their website, look at their reviews. I would generally recommend starting for a nonprofit first and look for one that's tied in with the federal government, which is SBIR, as far as starting the process with a finance company. So government loans. A government loan, up until the early 90s, the government actually loaned you the money. The largest one out there is the Small Business Administration. There's also the USDA, which is the United States Department, as an example, of Agriculture. Up until the early 90s, they would loan you the money directly. After the early 90s, what happens now is with the SBA, they basically will back a bank loan, as an example. So if you go into the traditional bank, which we covered earlier, and you're looking for a loan, and if they can't do it directly themselves, you can see if they can partner with the SBA for a government loan. How that works is the SBA, which is the federal government, Small Business Administration, backs the loan. So if an organization or a business defaults on the loan, then the bank has a way to go back and recoup their money. And then from that point on, the money is owed to the federal government. It's not owed to that bank anymore. And remember, with basically government loans, they're tied in with the federal government. There's all different types of government loans out there. Everything from ones for real estate, ones for working capital, ones for veterans, as an example, ones if you're wanting to export products overseas, as an example. So if you're looking for government loans, just simply go to Google, I would type in SBA, Small Business Administration, put in your city, or if you're in a rural area, put near me. And there is ones for every state in the United States. And reach out to them. You can reach out to them directly, or you can go to your local bank and find a local bank that is partnering with a government loan organization, like the SBA or USDA. The next one is grants. A grant is where you don't have to pay the money back. They're giving you the money up front. What you're going to find is grants are a lot more popular for nonprofits versus for-profits. So if you're a nonprofit, you're going to find more grant availability for a nonprofit business model than a for-profit business model. If you're looking for a grant from the federal government or your state government or your county or your city, a lot of times those grants are tied in, with a condition. And the condition might be that you are basically hiring so many employees, you're paying them a certain dollar amount, as an example, and then it's sort of tied in with those conditions and terms, as an example. If you fail to hire those number of employees, if you fail to hire those employees at a certain rate, as an example, they can come back to you and request that percentage of money back, as an example. If you're looking for grants, the best source of grants is grants.gov. Again, that's grants.gov, and that'll tie you in with all the grants to the federal government, as an example. A lot of counties in North Carolina have an economic developer in their area, and they're usually either tied in with the county government, they're tied in with the Chamber of Commerce, or they could be a nonprofit. So you can reach out to your economic development organization, whether it's capital or whether it's grants, and see what's available for your geographic area in regards to that. And the best way to find your economic development organization for your area is type in economic development organization for your county, and that's going to tie you into the economic development organization that works in your geographic market. You're going to find some municipalities and some areas might have some grants for minority-owned businesses, so you can see if that's an option for you and whether you're in that minority-owned class, as an example. So our next source of capital is leasing. Leasing is where you're not buying something, as an example, and you're paying a smaller amount up front. So let's say, as an example, I am going to buy a Mac computer, and that Mac computer is between $1,000 to $2,000. So if I buy that Mac computer for $1,000 to $2,000, now I am transferring that $1,000 to $2,000 out of my business to basically buy that Mac computer. If you find that you really need to use that money for other sources, leasing can be an option for you, because you can lease a Mac computer anywhere between $25 to $50 a month, as an example. So now you have a smaller upfront expense, which is basically $25 to $50 versus $1,000 to $2,000. Now you can take the difference between that $25 to $50 off of the $1,000 to $2,000, and that balance you can reinvest back into the business in other ways. With leasing, as an example, as your business gets going, if it's a startup, or if it's a basically growth business, whether it is a sustainability business model, whether it's a turnaround business model, you're going to have cash flow coming in. So you're taking cash flow, which we discussed earlier, and now you're taking that and you're paying that lease amount for that computer. It could be, as an example, leasing a building versus buying a building. It could be leasing furniture versus buying furniture. It could be leasing technology, as an example, versus buying the technology, like a computer, as an example. So leasing can be another source of capital for you. So our next source of capital is a microloan. We talked about traditional banks, which are for-profit, and they have a preference for loaning money to existing businesses versus a startup business, unless they might be partnering with a government loan, which we talked about the government loan. We talked about finance companies. So what is a microloan organization? A microloan organization is a nonprofit versus a for-profit. And traditionally, there's a gap for startup companies between startup and 3 years in business. So the microloan organizations are designed to fill that gap. They're to help a business get started. They're there to help a business sort of grow in the first couple years, as an example. So if you're looking for a microloan organization and you're a startup or the first couple years in business, this can be an excellent source for you. How do you find a microloan organization for your area? Again, just type in microloan for your city that you live in, or if you're in a more rural area, type in microloan near me. In North Carolina, in Western North Carolina, the Mountain BizWorks has been around for a good number of years. They service Western North Carolina. If you're looking for something in North Carolina, outside of Western North Carolina, then the NC Rural Center might be a good source for you for microloans. The other option that microloan organizations can provide you is where a bank traditionally is providing you the funding for the business model that you're in, or the business stage that you're in. With the microloan organization, they have some other features that might be able to help you. As an example, they might have some coaches that can sort of coach you. As an entrepreneur, you're going to have strengths and weaknesses. So the things that you're good on, you probably don't need coaching. The things that you have weakness in, you probably need some coaching. And for somebody that might be bookkeeping, for somebody that might be marketing, for somebody that might be employee recruitment or retention, for somebody that might be creating a business plan, as an example. So again, with the microloan organizations, traditionally they have coaches that are available for you. Sometimes those coaches are paid through the loan, and sometimes those coaches you're paying for directly, but you're paying a lower rate than you find on the market. So with the microloan organizations, they're nonprofit. They fill a gap for startup businesses or businesses in the first couple of years. They might have coaches that can sort of help you during that phase, because the focus for the microloan organization is they want you to be successful. And that's why the coaching is in place. With the microloan, they might have some options that might be available to you that sort of help you if you run into a little bit of a hurdle. They might be able to relook at your loan, and they might be able to do something with your loan. Like, for instance, they might do for a period of time where they do interest only, as an example. So that could be another feature with a microloan organization. They might have a little bit more flexibility with the loan and working with you on the loan, especially if you run into a couple hurdles in that startup phase or the phase that you're in for your business then. The next source of capital is personal credit cards. Again, this is a credit card you have or a credit card you might apply for. I would do this very carefully, as an example, because credit card interest rates can be a lot higher than traditional loans, as an example. The other thing, too, you want to make sure is if you're doing something on a personal credit card, you want to make sure you have the cash flow to pay that back. And even if you get a personal credit card where you don't have interest for a certain period of time, 6 months to a year, just realize in 6 months to a year that's going to come due, and you want to make sure you have the ability to pay that back. Because higher interest rates on credit cards can be something that drains your business and holds your business back from either growing or sustaining itself or turning it around, as an example. The next option you have is a personal loan. So that's where you're going into the bank and you're taking out a personal loan for your business. That personal loan might be tied into some type of collateral that you have, and that collateral could be your home, like a home equity loan. That collateral could be a car. That collateral could be something that you might have with the bank, like a savings account or something like that. So they might require collateral for a personal loan, as an example. So I would say this is an option, but I would explore some of the other 18 strategies for capital before you take out a personal loan. And the best place to go for a personal loan is where you're already doing your personal or you're opening up your business banking. Personal savings is another great source of capital that you might have some money that you've set aside, as an example, for starting this business or growing this business or scaling it up or turning around. This might be a time to sort of tap into that personal savings. The other thing you might want to look at too is sometimes we have assets that we no longer use. That could be a vehicle, that could be a motorcycle, that could be a boat, that could be anything that you personally have an asset that you're not using. You might want to look at selling that thing that you're not using and then reinvesting that money back into your personal savings, which in turn you can reinvest it back into your business. Next one is trade credits. So trade credits is where you go to an organization that provides products or services to your industry, and then you apply for credit there. And basically that's a credit account that you can draw down, as an example. So again, usually it's going to be at a higher interest rate that you're going to find for a traditional loan or a micro loan or things like that. So again, it could be an option for you. Traditionally, it's going to have a higher interest rate if you don't pay it back within 30 days. So a lot of times with trade credits, if you pay it back within 30 days, there might not be an interest. If you carry that with them, that's where you're going to incur the interest. And again, that interest is going to be higher than a traditional loan or a micro loan, as an example. So this could be a resource you could tap into if you're needing. Venture or equity capital is organizations that are looking for high growth industries. So what they're looking for is the next Apple, as an example. So they're looking for the next Apple company out there. And basically they want to invest in you at the early stage. And typically with venture or equity capital, what they're sort of looking for is they want to buy the business in 3 to 5 years. So if you have a business model where you want to basically sort of sell out in 3 to 5 years, and you're going to have a rapid growth and you're going to take out the assets from that business and sell it, this could be a business model for you. If you're not wanting to sell your business in 3 to 5 years and you don't have a high growth business that's going to be like the next Apple computer, then this probably wouldn't be an option for you in regards to that. So we talked about 18 different strategies here today to look at investing in your business either for a startup phase, a growth phase, a scale-up phase, a sustainability phase, or you're wanting to reinvest into your business to make it even more attractive when somebody buys. These are the 18 different ways that you're sort of looking at that you can sort of access. Any questions you have on these 18 different strategies or ways, just simply go to Google and type in the category, whether it's a microloan, whether it is trade credits, whether it's venture or equity capital. Do it for your city that you live in, or if you're in a more rural area, put near me. The Google is a great way to connect you with these 18 different strategies. They can inform you more about them. They can show you who's in your geographic market that might be able to help you with that. So if you're a startup business, as an example, your best source for starting up your business is probably personal savings. It could be family or friends if you do the business plan with them and have an agreement with them that's in writing. It could be a microloan organization because they're looking to fill that gap, as an example. Or it could be a traditional, basically, bank that is partnering with a government loan like the Small Business Administration in regards to that. And then microloan organizations also access other things other than SBA. They might be tying in with USDA, the Department of Agriculture. So if your business model is agriculture-based or you're providing value add to agricultural-based products, USDA might be something that might be able to help you out with that. The microloan organizations also get capital from nonprofits that want to reinvest in something that's important to them. And that might be minority-owned businesses, that could be women-owned businesses as an example, or it might be a certain type of business model that they want to reinvest back into as an example to better ensure that they're going to be there, like child care centers as an example. So my name is Gary Heisey. It was a pleasure spending time with you today, going over the 18 different strategies. Whether your business model is a startup business model, whether it is a growth business model, whether it's sustainability, whether it's a scale-up business model, whether it's a turnaround business model, or whether you're looking to sell your business in the future and you want to better ensure to get the most value for it, capital can help you do that.